Tonight, overworked to the point of quitting. Junior doctors say their shifts in the NHS are so tough, some simply cannot carry on in the job.
It wouldn't be surprising to find people crying or upset or just absolutely exhausted.
Also making the headlines, Scots Ukrainians fear for the future, as their former homeland declares a state of emergency amid the escalating Russia-Ukraine crisis.
Borussia Dortmund arrive in Glasgow for their Europa League match with Rangers without their star striker Erling Haaland.
And I'm live on the red carpet at the BFI IMAX in London for the hotly anticipated premiere of The Batman, which not only stars Robert Pattinson, it also stars Glasgow.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Scotland's junior doctors are exhausted, burnt out and quitting the NHS. Long shifts, staff shortages and the COVID-19 pandemic are compounding the problem, making morale worse.
The British Medical Association is echoing those concerns, saying trainee doctors are overworked and not getting their breaks. The Health Secretary says he recognises there are issues and says he's working on the recruitment and retainment of staff. Polly Bartlett reports.
If you're admitted to hospital, it's likely the first face you'll see will be a junior doctor. Some of the NHS's youngest members of staff shouldering increasing responsibility.
Hi, yes, Dr. Bingham. I've had a really difficult time, I would say. I think I take my work very seriously. It's a really big part of the person that I am. But the last 2 years and the pressures that the whole team have been under have stretched the care that we can provide.
Long shifts and staff shortages are taking their toll. And as we exit the pandemic, the problems aren't easing.
The last year to 6 months, the staff shortages, particularly nursing staff, has been a really big problem. In some ways that's pulled teams tighter together, but you can see the stress and the cracks starting to show, I think.
Junior doctors should work an average of 48 hours a week, but that's not always the case.
Very often you're doing 12, 13-hour shifts. When you're at the end of those, you find there's a gap, so it's then you covering, yes, another shift, for example. And psychologically it's difficult as well, being there with patients who are really struggling and at the end of life, and trying to be there with them, and then all the extra cruel things that COVID brought with it. You yourself, as well as being the professional there to provide treatment, which is what we're used to, you were there holding their hand and doing that extra part.
It's no surprise then that Scotland's trainees are moving across the world. Michael made the journey to Australia in 2016 after suffering from burnout, and he's not looked back.
They have got the numbers of doctors to cover all the shifts, which makes a huge difference, because when there's the numbers there, people get enough time off. My last year in the NHS was a pretty unhappy time. I wasn't sleeping very well. I was coming home from work and I had headaches from all the stuff that I had to deal with during the day, because there just wasn't enough time in the day. My mental health was really suffering.
The British Medical Association is worried, raising concerns over the number of junior doctors who have reached breaking point.
I don't think I can pick out one person that isn't feeling like that at least some of the time, if not all the time. It wouldn't be surprising to find people crying or upset or just absolutely exhausted. I think the frustrating thing from my perspective is that I'm doing absolutely everything I can to try and fix this, and it sometimes feels like the people that we need to listen aren't listening.
Listening now is the Health Secretary, who says he is committed to growing the workforce.
I think pay terms and conditions, and I say pay and terms and conditions, are really, really important. And I think absolutely, of course, when it comes to working conditions, improving those working conditions and taking care of the wellbeing staff, I think those are three critical pillars which will help to hopefully retain and recruit more doctors to our NHS.
These issues were not caused by the pandemic, but they were made worse because of it.
all people as well, and that to be able to provide the care that we all want to provide, we need to look after each other and look after the teams that we work in.
The pressure is on junior doctors like never before, but it is also on the NHS and Scottish Government to ensure they are looked after as well as patients. Polly Bartlett, STV News.
The United Nations General Secretary says the world is facing a moment of peril as fears grow that Russia is preparing to invade Ukraine. Kiev declared a state of emergency today and the country started conscripting army reservists.
Here, Scottish Ukrainians joined opposition leaders in calling for tougher sanctions. And the First Minister said she was appalled that Alex Salmond is still presenting a show on the Russian broadcaster RT. Here's our political editor, Colin Mackay.
Ukraine is under increasing threat from Russian invasion, with more than 100,000 troops massed round its borders. 1,500 miles from Kiev and its twin city, Edinburgh, these second-generation Ukrainians are planning to express their fears on Scotland's streets.
There are some people who want to demonstrate in front of the consulate.
Their fathers fled Ukraine after the Second World War, but they still have family and friends there who are increasingly living in fear of another war.
We're terribly concerned about the family back home. And what will happen? Will they end up moving to another country in Europe?
We're looking at humanitarian aid, things that the Ukrainian people will need on the ground, medical kits, a lot of stuff for people that will probably be displaced.
For them, the sanctions announced by the Prime Minister are not enough.
The sanctions are pathetic. We've got Mr Johnson's words not matching the action.
I don't think any government could conceivably be doing more to root out corrupt Russian money, and that is what we are going to do. And I think we can be proud of what we've already done.
Today, the Ukrainian consul and community leader Orholova met the First Minister.
We're looking for far more military package. We're looking for humanitarian aid. To save 5 banks and 3 people at this stage is not enough.
So you're disappointed so far?
I'm very disappointed, yes. Not just me. I think the whole everyone who lives in Ukraine and everyone Ukrainians in Scotland are disappointed.
At Prime Minister's questions, the Labour leader called for further sanctions against Putin.
Russia today is his personal propaganda tool. I can see no reason why it should be allowed to continue to broadcast in this country. So will the Prime Minister now ask Ofcom to review its licence?
Prime Minister. Mr Speaker, I believe that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, has already asked Ofcom to review that matter.
Welcome back to the Alex Salmond show.
One other sanction proposed by the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is that RT, the Russian television station, should be banned in the UK. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. It's a matter for Ofcom, but I do think there is now a very serious question about whether RT should continue to have a licence to broadcast here in Scotland, and I would certainly encourage Ofcom to look at that very, very seriously and closely indeed.
Linda Allison said she's appalled by Alex Salmond's continued involvement in that. Do you agree with her?
I'm appalled at Alex Salmond's continued involvement with RT. I don't think it's any secret now that I didn't think he should ever have had a television show on RT, but it is even more unthinkable now that that should continue.
The First Minister has told her MSPs and SNP MPs not to appear on RT, although there's obviously a much bigger picture here.
Are you expecting a full-scale war?
I'm praying not. I really am praying, because I hope that the rest of Europe are standing with Ukraine, and in my mind I think if they do invade as aggressively as it looks as though they are going to, and the rest of Europe get involved, it could be disastrous.
Capitals around the world are considering sanctions to stop Putin. But among the 4,000 Ukrainians in Scotland, the fear is he may already be unstoppable. Colin Mackay, STV News.
Other stories across Scotland, and a couple have had a lucky escape after their home was struck by lightning in the Isle of Lewis. Simon and Louise Scott were woken up when a bolt caused the chimney to crash through the roof and start a fire.
Scottish Water is calling for a ban on the sale of wet wipes containing plastic. The corporation says it responds to 36,000 blockages a year, 80% of them caused by wipes.
Glasgow cabbies are learning how to save someone's life if they've taken too many drugs. They're training in how to use naloxone, which can reverse the effects of an overdose. More than 20 Glasgow taxi drivers are volunteering to carry the kits.
Any opportunity to use it, obviously, it'll make a huge difference to whoever it is that's needing naloxone, So hopefully I'll never need to use it, but if we do, it could save a life.
The training's really quick and brief, so you can be trained how to use naloxone within 5 minutes, and even the instructions are on the side of the packs as well. So even if you came across somebody who you suspected had overdosed and you hadn't had training before, you could pick up a kit, read the instructions and be able to administer it, and you would never do any harm by administering naloxone in an overdose situation.
And there are fresh calls for Scots convicted and executed for witchcraft to be pardoned by the Scottish Government. It's estimated as many as 4,000 Scots were accused of being witches under the Witchcraft Act between 1563 and 1736.
65 years to the day since the disappearance of schoolgirl Moira Anderson. Police say the cold case investigation goes on, but they need more information before there will be a new search for her remains.
Those who run a foundation in the 11-year-old's name still hope for a breakthrough. They want to see what they describe as a last throw of the dice for relatives who've waited decades to give Moira a proper funeral. Here's our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
The schoolgirl who went out in a blizzard and vanished without a trace. The disappearance of Moira Anderson remains a live investigation 65 years on. After leaving her grandmother's house on the 23rd of February 1957, the 11-year-old was last seen boarding a bus driven by Alexander Gartshaw. More than 50 years later, prosecutors said the bus driver would have been charged with murder had he still been alive. Gartshaw was Sandra Brown's father.
The cold case unit have not given up. This might be the last throw of the dice. Maybe the breakthrough is going to come by, modern methods.
Hopes have been raised and dashed before. In 2013, a grave in Old Monkland Cemetery was examined by forensic teams. 4 years later, a canal in Coatbridge was dredged. Scientists believe technology, including drones and ground-penetrating radar, could help with further searches.
There's certainly intelligence and there's physical information on the ground that would suggest that there's at least 2 other locations which could be given a priority to exclude as being the location of Moira.
While much of this mining town has changed over the decades, some areas remain very much the same as they did in 1957. Using historic maps, forensic experts have plotted the routes of the bus that Moira would have taken that night. They've also pinpointed areas linked to Alexander Gartshaw. One site of possible interest is the Witchwood Ponds, known locally as the Tarry.
In the 1990s, they did go to the Witchwood area. There's 3 bodies of water. Only one of them was looked at properly.
You're never satisfied until there is the right result and that the remains can be returned to the family. So you keep going with it, and hopefully someone will make a call that will just have that other little bit of intelligence information, something from the past that just might help us prioritise to focus on one area rather than the other.
Moira is remembered through a foundation set up in her name to provide counselling for children and adults. After a 40% increase in referrals during the pandemic, on this anniversary, the foundation officially opened new play therapy rooms. This work brings some comfort to Moira's relatives after a lifetime of waiting.
The perpetrator, the person I believe is responsible, has passed away. A number of people have passed away that are key folk, but her sisters are still alive and they deserve answers. I deserve answers.
Those leading this cold case say no further searches are currently planned unless they receive new information. Sharon Frew, STV News.
Let's move on to the sport now with Rama.
Your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Good evening. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst believes Rangers can finish the job and knock Borussia Dortmund out of the Europa League, but says his team can't take a defensive approach to the game. The Albert side, who have a 4-2 lead from the first leg, are without the injured Aaron Ramsey. Dortmund star man Erling Haaland also misses the match.
Nice with it.
The Borussia Dortmund manager may have joked about the Scottish climate when the squad arrived in Glasgow today, but his team's performance against Rangers last week was no laughing matter. So how do you assess your chances of overturning the tie?
We'll see, it will be a tough game.
Do you think that was a one-off performance from Dortmund the other week and should much more improvement to come?
It was a bad day, but in football you never know.
And obviously no Erling Haaland, but can Dortmund get the result without him?
We'll see tomorrow.
How are you feeling about the second leg?
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Was that a one-off performance, you think, from Dortmund? Is a lot more improvement to come, do you think?
We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah. You said last week that you're really looking forward to playing at Ibrox. Yeah. Have you been there before?
Very historic stadium.
Ibrox will be packed tomorrow night with Rangers and Dortmund fans. Where have you all come from, and do you live in Scotland?
We're coming from China.
I'm from London.
He's from London, and I'm come here for, the University of Glasgow.
Got tickets?
Yes, I got tickets signed by Jude.
Rangers may have a 2-goal advantage from the first leg, but that doesn't mean they'll be sitting back come tomorrow night.
I think what we did well last week is also at the right time, press them a little bit higher, try to win the ball and to be dangerous, but to begin the game and sit deep, I don't think that's in our system.
The Dortmund squad trained at Ibrox this evening, minus star man Erling Haaland. He hasn't travelled to Glasgow due to a muscle injury.
In these competitions, you want to compete against the best. I think he's one of the best at the moment. So from that perspective, it's a sad thing. But if you look at what he means to Dortmund, is obviously, or surely it's a disadvantage to them.
Ange Postecoglou says passing up the chance to train on Bodo Glimt's artificial pitch ahead of their Europa Conference League clash in Norway tomorrow night will make zero difference. Celtic instead trained at Lennoxtown ahead of travelling to the Arctic Circle as they look to overturn a 3-1 deficit from the first leg.
The best approach is to make sure that your players always are prepared to deal with whatever challenges there are, because there's no easy solutions. Us flying there today and having a session on their pitch is going to make absolutely zero difference. Us being here, getting a good training session for the boys, getting them prepared for a difficult game tomorrow is much more important to me.
Stephen Robinson will have to wait to take charge of his first game as St Mirren manager after their match against Dundee tonight was postponed. Dens Park failed an inspection earlier due to a waterlogged pitch. Robinson's first game will now be at home when the Saints host Hearts on Saturday. Boxing, and ahead of Josh Taylor's world title defence, the undisputed light welterweight champion says he's proud of the role he's playing in highlighting Scottish boxing. The undercard of the fight sees Nick Campbell take on Jay McFarlane in the first Scottish heavyweight title bout for 71 years.
It's in the best arena in Glasgow, in my opinion. On the undercard, one of the best fighters on the planet, so everything's in the mix to make it a pretty special evening for me.
That's what I want to do. I want to put my name on books. I want to put my name in history books, and this is the perfect opportunity to do that, especially with such a platform.
I'm not going to give you too much away, but listen, I know that what I've done in the gym is going to put me in good stead for the fight on the 26th. May the best man win.
The intelligence that I possess is always kind of seen second. You know what I mean? You need to get to know me to know that that's how I work. But I believe I'll outthink him. Everything he can do, I'll do better.
Tennis news, and Andy Murray has been knocked out of the Dubai Tennis Championship. Murray suffered a comprehensive straight sets defeat to Yannick Sinner, losing 7-5, 6-2. And that's all the sport.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Sean has the weather, and he's going to show us something he says we don't want to see.
Well, it seems as if we've had one storm after the other, very unsettled weather through most of February, and you don't want to see this. This is the jet stream coming out of Canada, some very bright colours on it, so it is very active still just now, crossing the Atlantic, and it stays that way into next week, so things remaining unsettled for the time being. Now, a big caveat for you, but it does look as if, as we go into March, the weather should finally start to settle down, but we'll keep an eye on that. For the time being, let's have a look at what's in store for the next few days.
Watch out for a sudden temperature drop. TUI Blue Hotels. Sponsor STV Weather.
Well, February continues to be non-stop. It seems like there's not a day goes by where we don't have a weather warning. And, well, we do it for tonight and tomorrow. Thunder showers, and also snow showers as well. Much colder air coming in from the northwest through the rest of today, and that's with us through tomorrow as well. Milder air returning on Saturday. But also, well, it seems as if it's been the case through most of February. We just hang on to this strong and blustery wind. It's been particularly gusty out there at times today, but we could see gusts tonight up to about 50, 55 miles per hour, maybe even 60 around most exposed parts of the Hebrides and the west coast, and lots of wintry showers feeding in, especially across the likes of Argyll, Stirlingshire and around Glasgow, Renfrewshire, Dumbartonshire, and feeding all the way towards West Lothian and Falkirk. So at low levels here tomorrow morning, there is a possibility of 1, 2, 3 centimetres of lying snow, drifting snow over higher ground, blizzard-like conditions. So a pretty awful start to the day, expect in some of those heavier snow showers, the higher parts of the A737, the M8 and also the M77, the M74. So tomorrow morning, a tricky travel, I expect, with those heavy snow showers. But at low levels, those showers should start to turn back to rain and sleet during the afternoon, continue to fall as snow over higher ground and feeling very cold in that wind. Thankfully, Friday, much quieter, lighter winds, lots of lovely sunshine, but then milder air returns on Saturday, along with strong winds and rain.
TUI Blue Hotels. Sponsor STV Weather.
They're filming Batgirl in Glasgow right now, but back in 2020 it was Batman that was turning the city into Gotham.
And that movie, starring the Caped Crusader, is finally about to hit cinemas. Well, lucky Laura Boyd is in London on the red carpet. Laura, any star names there in tights or latex?
Sadly, no tights or latex yet, Kellyanne. Plenty of PVC, courtesy of my 70s jacket, which is very much needed at the moment because I'm outside the BFI IMAX on the red carpet in London for the premiere, as we said, of The Batman. Now, this is a film that has been a long time coming. It should have been released last summer. There were 2 delays thanks to COVID, but finally it will be released next week, and let me tell you, it is well worth the wait. It has such a stellar cast. Now, we've got Robert Pattinson stepping into those big shoes, that big suit as Batman. He, of course, shot to fame in the Twilight movies. They called him R-Pats then. They've rechristened him as R-Bats, which I'm a big fan of. We've got Colin Farrell in this movie, as well as the Penguin, and also Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and she is absolutely fantastic. Now, the stars are coming down the red carpet. You can actually see the director and producer behind me. We are also going to get Robert Pattinson and people too, so stay tuned for that. You'll be able to see that online later. But another big star of this movie is Glasgow. Now, you mentioned that they're shooting Batgirl at the moment as Glasgow looks like Gotham City, and they did the same for Batman back in 2020. So if you go and see this film, I've had a sneak peek, you will see the necropolis, the likes of the Goma, you will see Glasgow Royal Infirmary and Glasgow Cathedral, because it looks fantastic. And Robert Pattinson himself, although he didn't make it, they used a stunt double, he said that Glasgow doubles up brilliantly as Gotham City, so we are taking that as a compliment. As I say, you will be able to see the interviews, you can see them just coming down. I've heard that Robert Pattinson is here, so we will have him a little bit later on, and I will also be back tomorrow night from the red carpet for the Outlander premiere, where I have been promised that I'm going to get a chat with Sam Heughan, so we'll have him live. So it's very starry at the moment. Sam Heughan tomorrow night, Robert Pattinson tonight, and John Mackay. I mean, you're a not bad start there, John. Back to you guys in the studio, and hopefully all the stars to come.
Not bad, not bad. Thank you for that, Laura in London. Enjoy your trip. Not bad. I think I can take that from Laura. Just unlucky that we came to just a wee bit too early before all these stars came down to meet her.
But hey, she has got a tough life, huh? In London, on the red carpet, with all the stars. And
still there tonight. Tomorrow night, should I say. We'll look forward to that.
Yes, we're back tomorrow at 6. Join us then. Bye-bye.
From all of us, thanks for watching. Good night.